Denise Brock, and I am the Operations Director for GRACE, the Global Resource for Advancing Cancer Education. And we're going to talk today with Jared Bigman and talk about his journey with clinical trials and his cancer diagnosis. Jared, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jared Bigman. I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma back in September of 2012. And
So do you think when it comes to healthcare and clinical trials, do you think the AYA populations are treated differently than adults? Or let's talk a little bit about the issues surrounding that. One of the things I know that sometimes as a young adult, healthcare is a hard thing to understand because you've basically been under your parents' health insurance, I believe, until you're 26 or so. Do you feel like you had a pretty good knowledge of the healthcare system? Do you feel like there was confusion there or any problems when you were diagnosed or getting treatment or finding treatment or learning about your healthcare coverage? Let's talk about that a little bit.
yeah, I didn't really have any major health issues before my diagnosis, so I really hadn't explored much of what my coverage was. I was on my parents' plan until I was 26, and that was very helpful. It wasn't something that I had a whole lot of costs that I had to bear or my family had to bear overall. So it's pretty easy to manage, and I think I wasn't at a advantage or disadvantage because of that. I think my advantage was that I had health coverage, but I didn't lose it at 26 because I had a job at that time.
Right.
But I think you know it could be very challenging for people who aren't able to go out and get a full-time job because they're in treatment and then have to worry about losing coverage at that time. Or if they need to leave a job and go on Cobra, which can be extremely expensive, that can be difficult. The one thing I have noticed is that clinical trials are generally covered by the study sponsor, so there may be fewer or minimal expenses that have to bear to participate. So that is one positive, I think.
You found that most of them are covered? Because I know that there's some disparity there. There's not every clinical trial covers those expenses for their patients.
I have found that the center I go to will bill my insurance, and if my insurance doesn't want to cover something or says that they shouldn't have to cover something, then it's been taken care of. I sometimes have to make a couple phone calls. Sometimes it can take, I have one line item that took over a year. I think it was some imaging that they had to decide, but yeah, I think that's been it. I haven't had personally too many challenges with that.
I know in one of our conversations you talked about insurance that you had to access during a certain period. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there was at one point when I was on CAR T-cell treatment for a clinical trial, and I was inpatient, and then afterwards I wasn't able to drive for several weeks at a time, and so I wanted to take some time away from work. This was before COVID, and I had to figure out what that was going to look like from my new employer, and what I had paid into from a state plan and some other stuff. So it was a little complex, but it ended up at the end of the day not being too bad at all in terms of work time, and I was being paid roughly the same as my salary. So financially, it wasn't a hardship for me.
Is that something that you think you could have, in learning about clinical trials and things like that, do you think that there could be more information out there about things like accessing coverage if you need to, and information like that? Was that all stuff that you had to search out, or was that information kind of given to you up front?
I had to talk to the HR person where I worked a little bit, and then also investigate my prior coverage and what that looked like as well from my previous job. Um, and so that was a little bit of time. I think it wouldn't have been something that was available publicly because my situation was a little unique.
Mhm.
But I think maybe the messaging that could be more clear is that, if your treatment makes it difficult for you to work, then you should talk to your doctor and as well as the center that you're working with, a nurse navigator, case manager, whoever's there, and really share with them that, my working full time is very difficult and treatment is getting in the way with that. Is there anything we can do? And there may be opportunities for you to get coverage for that that would um, allow you to take some time away
Mhm.
from work.
Mhm. So it sounds like you A were good at asking questions, and B had a lot of resources available to you because you had a good job, because you had a supportive family, and you had good treatment facilities, things like that. So I think that uh, one of the things that I'm getting is the fact that you're very communicative and that you ask a lot of questions, and you don't have a problem talking to people and asking the questions. That helped you a lot in this. And I'm not sure, I mean, that could be a stumbling block for some people, um, if they don't know the questions to ask, or that those things are available for them.